Hello, Gator. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, great.
of the things that's nice about Unity Fellowship is the fact that no matter whether you're white, black, brown, purple, green, gay, straight, bi, trans, you're welcome here. You know, it's just the mindset of everybody here, include Pastor Bob all the way down. You know, everybody here. It's home, and you feel like you're going home. You feel like you're in a big accepting family when you're here.
So what makes Unity Fellowship different from other churches in Owensboro is their focus on making sure that everyone feels welcomed and accepted with no conditions. They're accepting of the LGBTQ plus community, of different people from different backgrounds and cultures, and this is what really led me to joining Unity Fellowship. And I also feel like many churches focus on the individual, but we are actually meant to be in relationship with others. The concept of Ubuntu, that if one person is oppressed, that all people are oppressed. And I feel like Pastor Bob, in his sermons, he really focuses on systemic injustices and oppression, and that God is on the side of the oppressed.
Well, after many years of being out of the church, we came to a point where we were ready to find a church, but I in particular knew that I no longer wanted a part of what I had experienced as a younger person. My soul and spirit had just no longer aligned with what I was being taught about myself. So I left the church for many years, and then as a couple years later, we decided we wanted to return to a church. So a new part of that had to be a church that was totally accepting and that not just welcome to come to the door, but could fully participate in all regard should we desire. And so we began to visit churches, and we visited Unity Fellowship a while back, and felt like we had made a discovery in a church home.
And we also like this church because it's a teaching church. Every Sunday we have the opportunity after the service, or even sometimes during it, if we have questions and we're not sure of what he's talking about, or if we have questions as to the sermon that he's preaching, that we're allowed to do that. And it's something that I've never had in a church. It's been very enlightening, and I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned about a lot of things, actually. And above and beyond anything else, I know that I'm loved. I know that Scott's loved, and I know that we're loved together.
And so it's not just like going to mass at a big church and you just go in, hear the thing, get up and leave. Here you actually are charged with asking yourself, what does it mean? And the membership is small enough we can all interact during the sermon as well as after the sermon. So we can ask each other questions. You learn from other people with their comments or their questions about whatever we're discussing that week or what was discussed the week before or whatever. And unlike a large church where you just know the people from sight, you actually
Yes, we've got a
know
meeting
the
today,
people
family
here,
meeting today to talk
whether
about
they
it.
are active in doing something
We have a proposal.
or they're just here every week and they participate in how are you doing and stuff like that, or they tell you how somebody else that they've talked to that you haven't seen is doing. So it's like a very large, it's not just a church family, it's a large family.
Just because you came from a Baptist background or a Pentecostal background or a Catholic background doesn't mean you're not welcome. Unity will surprises a lot of people because everyone is accepted. You will feel comfortable. You won't feel out of place. You won't feel judged. You'll feel like you belong.
G, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, give us a test real quick.
Testing 1, 2, 3, testing.
That sounds pretty clear. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey folks, this is Pastor Bob coming to you from Unity Fellowship. You may be really sick of church. You may have given up on church a long time ago, and maybe you're not even looking for a place. But I want to invite you to a faith community where you'll be safe, where you can be accepted for who you are.
It's actually
Always.
Debbie's. I can't claim it.
For whoever you are right now on your faith journey. Check us out on Facebook Live. Check us out on Zoom.
Oh,
I think
wait
you'll
till you
find a
see
place
her
that
other
you're
one.
safe, a
got
place that you'll be
65 at
accepted,
home.
a place that you'll feel comfortable.
Yeah.
What makes Unity Fellowship
I may be
different from
driving
other
something new
churches in
next week.
Owensboro is their
My car pretty
focus
much died this
on
week. The-
making sure that
the other one.
everyone feels welcomed and accepted with no conditions. They're accepting of
We-
the LGBTQ
We were
plus
already thinking we
community,
might start looking this
of
fall.
different
but a $5,000
people from
repair
different backgrounds
bill
and
said
cultures.
maybe sooner.
And this is what really led me to joining Unity Fellowship.
It's got over 200,000 miles on it
community-
anyway.
Its heart is open to
Yeah,
everyone,
the
and
Jeep.
even if you are on the fence and you might
Just
disagree,
old age, it fell apart.
we are still open to having
like-
that
kinda like
dialogue
people.
and that discussion that fosters growth and understanding. So I feel like the people who come to Unity Fellowship are so open and loving that even if you didn't agree with something that the church promotes, that you're still able to
For
express
less than
that
$5,000,
and
yeah.
not be judged.
Good morning. We are so glad that you are here, so glad that you have found us wherever you are joining us from, whether you're on site or you have joined us virtually. So glad to have you with us today. This is a safe space. All of you, every molecule of your being is safe here. It is welcome. It is affirmed, and want you to know that you can relax and be yourself, whoever you are and wherever you are in your journey. Let me introduce our associate pastor, Pastor Gator Lone Wolf. Say a word.
Good morning. I echo Bob's words. You're in a safe space. I want to offer a particular welcome to those who are marginalized, who have felt on the outside for most of your life. You are amongst friends. You are amongst family. We welcome you and are so glad you're with us this morning.
Thank you for that. And I want to begin this morning with a video. Our first video. This is Bob Dylan, and the title of the video is Dignity. a little dignity. This is a time when we share any news, joys, and concerns that you might have. If you are on site, if you'll wave a hand, we'll get a microphone to you so that those who are joining us virtually can hear you. If you're joining us virtually, if you're on Zoom, you can unmute and we will hear you. If you're on Facebook, if you would put something in the chat, someone will read it so that everyone can hear all the concerns and joys and news that you have to share with us.
I see that Richard is still not home. You might ask him how he's doing.
Okay. Richard, can you hear us? I don't hear anything. He's not on or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, it's Chrissy. As a lot of you know, I'm very much a part of one of the 12-step groups that meets here at Unity. And I sponsor 8 different girls, and one of them has been recently graduated from treatment. It was very sudden, and we're all just really concerned about her, that she's ready to go home. And I can't divulge her name, but if someone could keep her in her prayers, just that she does well. She's one that matters pretty big to me.
Okay. Thank you. Certainly. And not only her, but all of them, all of the 12-step folks that are part of our gathering here at one time or another.
Bob, I'm here. I couldn't find it. Way to speak for a minute.
That's okay. We can hear you now. Tell us how you're doing.
I'm getting better.
Did you say better? We're not hearing much.
Rehab unit, hospital 906. Could you hear me at all?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting better slowly, but I'm getting better. Doing fine.
Okay. All right. We'll continue to pray for you.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Bob,
Anyone
yeah,
else?
Bob, I like to remember those who are suffering from the storms that have been moving through
Yeah.
the country, and people suffering with the wars, and then lastly to be with the protesters, and try to find peace. Those are my requests today.
Yeah. Thank you. All of those. Anyone else? Yeah.
I have a family member who's currently going through cancer treatment, so I was just asked to keep them in prayers and ask that God guide that situation.
Certainly. Thank you, Hunter. Donna.
My name is Dada. I pray for my mom and my dad.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you sharing with us. Anyone else? Roy asked for a Debbie update. She started her new medication this week. It's pretty rough stuff. She's tolerating it pretty well so far. There's a lot of nausea. She's been running a fever every night. Other than that, she's not as bad as we kind of thought she might be. Of course, she's only had one of the bad pills so far. She takes another one every Tuesday for the next couple of weeks, and then she gets a week off. The fear is that it'll get worse as it builds up in her system. But thank you for asking. Anyone else? Pastor G, would you lead our prayer, please?
Sure. God, we come to you this morning with prayer concerns that range from asking for peace, guidance in situations, the health of those who we're concerned about, our parents, our loved ones, fortifying us for dealing with disease and illness and loss. Be with us and those struggling in ways that only you can. We give you thanks for the great things that are happening in our church, in our faith community, in and across the country and the world. We give you thanks for those. Open our hearts and minds to the message this morning. and help us better realize your inclusive love and encourage us to share that with each other. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you for that. And I should have said this during the news section a minute ago, but there will be a family meeting immediately following our worship service this morning. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, we will send out a link so that you can move from Facebook. It won't be on Facebook, but you can leave Facebook and follow the link to Zoom. And we will go immediately into that as soon as the worship service is over. The purpose of the meeting is to consider a proposal for the purchase of our church building by the Burmese congregation, Chin Emmanuel Baptist Church. It is a win-win-win all the way around, but we'll vote on that. If you are worried that you're not a member of the church, that's okay, because none of us are members of our church. We don't keep a membership roll. If you are here, you're a part of the family, and you are invited and welcome to be a part of the meeting. So we'll say more about that as we get close to that time, but please plan on being with us for our family meeting and rejoicing with us and voting with us. We don't vote on very many things, but this is one thing. Selling a building is something worth voting on. Let's say our affirmation of oneness together, our affirmation of togetherness. We gather in oneness together. We praise and worship God together. We proclaim God together. We welcome and affirm all persons in God's love together. We seek to live for God in every breath and heartbeat together. I invite you to join our contact list. If you have not yet done so, you can do that by texting the word ADD, A-D-D, to 270-201-5022. It will send you a form and ask you for name and other information. That's unnecessary. If you text the word add to that number, you'll be added to the contact list. However, we'd like to know your name, if you would be so kind as to do that. Every Sunday morning, however, whether you share your name or not, every Sunday morning about 9 o'clock, you'll get a text. Occasionally, you'll get a text for other purposes, like we're sending out a text today at about 11 o'clock so that you can join the family meeting. But normally it goes out about 9 o'clock on Sunday mornings. It'll have the theme for the day as well as links so that you can join us. So please consider being a part of our contact list. If you would like to support this ministry, there are a couple of different ways that you can do that. These are new options that are available. On our Facebook page is a new Donate Now button. On our web page is a new Donate Now button. You can follow those to give. We're still working on the texting option so that you can do that as well. And if you are present, would like to support the ministry, you can leave your offering in one of the two offering plates as you leave. There's one at each door. You can also mail it to P.O. Box 1401 in Owensboro, 42302. We acknowledge, we value every gift, and we greatly appreciate it, but we never put any pressure on you. But if you'd like to support us, we greatly appreciate your help. Excuse me. Our next video is Tim McGraw, and this is Humble and Kind. always stay humble and kind. Our breakout question to get us started this morning is, when are those moments in your life when you don't see other people? When do they just become part of the landscape? Maybe intentionally, maybe not intentionally. Sometimes we choose not to acknowledge folks, and we all do it from time to time. I've been known to act like I didn't see somebody when I didn't know their name. We all do from time to time. What are those times that occur in your life when you either accidentally don't see people or you choose to not see people or acknowledge them?
Before we start, what we don't see them, thank you for these 2 videos today, especially this one. It's just, it gives you a good feeling instead of the horrible feelings that are going on.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know if Carol has the same problem or not, but macular degeneration, when you have that, I come in from outside and my eyes, it takes them at least 5 minutes to get to where I can see something inside and recognize somebody. And I will see somebody that I know, and they'll say, well, I thought you were going to walk right by me. I said, well, I couldn't tell who you were until my eyes get adjusted. So eyes have a lot to do with not being able to identify people.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a physical thing that we can't see them. Yeah, I'm sharing some of that same feeling with you there, Roy and Carol.
There are a few people in this town that I really choose not to speak to ever again. And if I see them in the grocery, I go the other way.
Sure.
I admit.
Yeah, I think we all do that from time to time. We choose to avoid folks because we've been hurt by them, or they are people that we can't find any common ground with. Yeah. What else? Other times that you do not see.
I don't know, has anyone, sorry. I don't know if anyone here has ever been to New York City before.
Oh yeah.
But just walking around in New York City, I've heard it been described pretty accurately as being surrounded by people yet feeling completely alone.
Yeah, yeah. You can be in a huge crowd and feel like you're completely alone. You're absolutely right. And if you're a tourist in New York City, you may be looking up and not see the people in front of you.
I'm not sure if this is right, but I think it's similar. Sometimes when I fear that someone's judging me, usually because I'm trans or whatever, I will tune out and I'll just pretend they're not there. That way I don't have to deal with it.
Sure, sure. That's very applicable. Thank you.
Sometimes we get too busy.
Yeah.
And we don't stop and smell the roses.
Our mind is on something else. We're taking care of whatever task is in front of us, and we don't see.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Bob. I mean, sometimes you just don't have the emotional bucket full, and you cannot engage with somebody, and you know they need a whole lot of engagement.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you're just too consumed with your own stuff.
Yeah.
That's a good description. Your bucket's full. Not room for anything else. You're right. Anyone else? Well, we are continuing with our series, Church Without Walls, and exploring what it means to be a church of radical hospitality, especially in a digital age where we are separated by time and space. Our world has really shifted quite a lot, and we're now faced with learning how to do community when we cannot see each other, when we cannot touch each other, when we cannot break bread together, when we cannot be together physically. We're reimagining how to do church. It's hard, and I need all the help I can get in figuring it out. So I tell you up front, this is a discussion, and I want you to help us as we think through these things together. We've been looking at some of the parables and encounters with Jesus in the scriptures, trying to glean lessons from them that help us to dismantle the walls of separation that Paul talked about in his Ephesian letter, those walls of hostility that were destroyed by Christ. And we who are followers of Christ are called to be wall destroyers too. As I said, it's really hard, and I need your help, and I'm depending on you to help with the reimagining part of how we do church in a digital age. I've been talking with some of the folks who join us digitally, trying to urge them and encourage them to join us. Maybe some of them will today. Maybe they'll tell us their names. But whether they do or not, and I certainly want them to be a part of this discussion, I'm hoping that they will. But whether they do or not, you are welcome. Let me say that again. If you need the anonymity, that if that protects you in some way, please know you are still welcome in this place. Let's say our text. Let's read our text together this morning. Pastor G has our reading.
Right. So this is in Luke chapter 16, verses 19 through 31. I'm getting some feedback on my end. I don't know about y'all. There was a certain rich man who clothed himself with purple and fine linen, and who feasted luxuriously every day. At his gate lay a certain poor man named Lazarus, who was covered with sores. Lazarus longed to eat the crumbs that fell from the rich man's table. Instead, dogs would come and lick his sores. The poor man died and was carried by angels to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. While being tormented in the place of the dead, he looked up and saw Abraham at a distance with Lazarus at his side. He shouted, "Father Abraham, have mercy on me. Send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I'm suffering in this flame." But Abraham said, "Child, remember that during your lifetime you received good things, whereas Lazarus received terrible things. Now Lazarus is being comforted, and you are in great pain. Moreover, a great crevice has been fixed between us and you. Those who wish to cross over from here to you cannot, neither can anyone cross from there to us." The rich man said, "Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my father's house. I have 5 brothers. He needs to warn them so that they don't come to this place of agony." Abraham replied, "They have Moses and the prophets. They must listen to them." The rich man said, "No, Father Abraham, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will change their hearts and lives." Abraham said, "If they don't listen to Moses and the prophets, then neither will they be persuaded if someone rises from the dead."
Thank you. First of all, this is a parable. As such, it is not about 2 real-life people, nor about what happened to them. It's a made-up story like all the parables. And this story should be taken alongside the other parables. Parables were intended to shake things up. They were intended to make you think about life, to ponder, to mull over, to think about the way things are and the way that things could be. Yes. They were intended to surprise, to shock, to disturb, and there are several surprising things we find in this story of Lazarus and the rich man. And first is, it's surprising who is named in the story and who is not named in the story. Lazarus, the poor man, is the one who has a name. It is the opposite of what was expected in that day, and frankly, would be the opposite of what would be expected today as well. We know the names of the rich people. If I were to ask you to name 5 rich people, you could easily do that. If I were to ask you to name 5 poor people, you might be hard put to come up with that, unless you want to name yourself, of course, and we all think we're poorer than we actually are. But to be poor, to be in the depths of poverty like Lazarus, we'd really be hard-pressed to find those people and to name them. But Lazarus has a name. He is Eleazar or Eleazar, a form of that name, which means God helps. While, by the way, Lazarus is the only named character in any parable that Jesus ever told. Such as how that shows how important naming Lazarus was to Jesus. Whereas the rich man remains anonymous. Tradition has called him Dives, but that's not a name. It's just a word that means rich man. So if you say a rich man named Dives, what you're saying is there was a rich man named Rich Man. And while it's not really shocking that the rich man has little regard for Lazarus, the contrast between their stations in life is tremendous. The immensity of the gulf between them should be shocking to us. It should be disturbing. Lazarus is at his gate. The rich man stumbles over him at every coming and going. And Lazarus would gladly have fought the dogs for crumbs falling from the rich man's table, but the dogs were inside while Lazarus was outside. The rich man's total and complete disregard for Lazarus ought to anger us. He was profoundly blind to the needs of Lazarus. The old adage, out of sight, out of mind, is true, but so is its corollary, out of mind, out of sight. In this case, Lazarus was out of the rich man's mind. The reversal of fortunes in the story is also supposed to be surprising. It would have actually stunned the listeners of Jesus. It would have been probably the most shocking thing that he said of all, because it was widely believed that poor people were poor because they deserved to be poor, not because they were born into institutional poverty. And the rich were rich because they deserved to be rich, not because they were born into generational wealth. So, hearing a story from Jesus' lips about a poor man and an ill man, very poor, ill, whose name is known to Father Abraham, who is carried by angels to Abraham's bosom, while a nameless rich man dies and is buried without much fanfare, that would have been shocking indeed to the hearers of this story. So this story takes its place beside other shocking parables that Jesus told. Parable of a good Samaritan, for instance, or the parable of the father who should have disowned his son for taking his inheritance and squandering it all, but is merciful and welcomes him back home. These are stories that they would have heard and been shocked by the ending of the story. So we need to read this story as a parable alongside of those other shocking parables that Jesus told. Secondly, we need to read it in context. Have you ever heard me say that context is important? Have you ever heard that? What? You weren't listening then. Here's what's going on just before Jesus tells this story. It sets the context for why he tells the story. Jesus has just finished telling another story, a different story about wealth and how it should be used. And he concludes with these words from Luke chapter 16. No one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. Then the scriptures tell us this. The Pharisees, who dearly loved their money, heard all of this and scoffed at Jesus. And then he said to them, you like to appear righteous in public, but God knows your heart. What this world honors is detestable in the sight of God. So Jesus is using this parable of the rich man and Lazarus to teach a very poignant lesson about the dangers of loving money like the Pharisees did, rather than caring for people who are also made in the image of God. The entire point of the story is to shine a light on the Pharisees who loved their money, to tell a parable against them, and to warn people not to be hard-hearted toward the poor. Thirdly, this story is about relationships. I know that a lot of pastors have used this story to talk about hell. It's not about hell. Both Lazarus and the rich man are in the same place, Sheol. That's why they can see each other. They are in the same place, not different places, not heaven and hell, but both men are in Sheol. What was believed about Sheol was that it was a place of nothingness, that you die, you get buried, and you kind of enter into this nothing existence. But it was also believed that if you were unrighteous, that it was kind of a time of purging. Actually, the Catholic teaching on purgatory is closer to the way that the Jews felt about Sheol, was that there was this time of purging when you might have a chance of changing the way you lived in life, but the thought was that it never lasted more than 12 months. This was not an eternal damnation and torment for ever and ever and ever. It was a time of purging, a time to reconsider the way you were in life. Anyway, it's not about hell. It's not about the afterlife at all. It's about this life. It goes to the very heart of Jesus' teachings, that we are all connected to each other, that we have an obligation to care for one another, and that this teaching comes directly from the Old Testament as well. That Jesus' teaching about how we're to care for each other is the same as what you would find in the Old Testament. That's why Abraham reminds the rich man, you've already had the Moses and the prophets to teach you, and you didn't learn. Your brothers aren't learning either. If there is a gulf between you and Lazarus, it is of your own making. And you've spent your entire lifetime maintaining that gulf between you. Jesus made all this very clear to another rich man on another occasion when the rich man asked, so what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus answered, to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. That is the heart of the gospel. Not heaven and hell, not accepting Jesus as your personal Savior, but loving God and loving your neighbor. And you cannot love God without loving your neighbor. There's a connection. The way we love God is by loving our neighbors, those who were, like yourself, created in the image of God. Finally, this is a story about seeing and not seeing. The rich man does not see Lazarus. Turns out, we find out later, he does actually know his name. He didn't acknowledge him in life, but after life, when he sees Lazarus in the bosom of Abraham, he says, "Oh, why don't you send Lazarus to me to dip his finger in some cool water and cool me off?" Notice that even after death, he does not acknowledge Lazarus as an equal. Even then, he sees Lazarus only as a servant, someone to do his bidding. Send Lazarus to dip his finger in the water. Send Lazarus to warn my brothers. He never acknowledges Lazarus as an equal. He is only seen as a less than, even after death. He does not acknowledge Lazarus as his brother, as a fellow son of Abraham. He is surprised and appalled that Lazarus would be in Abraham's bosom, while he, a rich man who's been privileged his entire life, is not. So this story is about seeing and not seeing. And we are facing a time when, well, there's always been a time when we don't see those who are less fortunate, hasn't there? It's always been a time when we don't see the invisible people of the world. It's always been true that the poor are unseen. It's always been true that the marginalized are unseen. It has always been true that there are certain people who are unseen. But we live in a digital age now where the unseen are sometimes unseen by choice. We probably have some people watching right now, and I know that we'll have some people watching after the fact because it's only safe for them to watch it when it's not live. I know that we'll have some folks watching later on who are unseen because it's their choice to be unseen. They are not seen because it does not feel safe to them to be seen by us. So I have a word for you. All of you who are out there watching anonymously, those of you who only watch the videos after Sunday morning because that's the safest time for you to hear a message and to be encouraged by that message, I want to say to you, you are seen even if you are unseen. Even if you remain in the shadows of anonymity, know we love you, know that you are welcome, know that you are affirmed, and that you are a fellow child of God, just like any of us. We love you. So let's talk. This is time when we have some feedback time when we think together about the message that we've heard. It's a time where you can ask questions. You can make observations that I did not make. This is your turn to help with the teaching of today's lesson. What are your thoughts, comments, ideas, questions, observations?
I think this story is just as relevant today as it was when it was written, whenever that was.
Absolutely. Very relevant. Always been a gulf between the wealthy and the poor, and it seems like it's getting worse and worse in this country, at least right now. Someone else, your thoughts. Welcome questions. Welcome your observations.
I believe that we as human beings are empathetic creatures by design.
Yeah.
But especially in today's day and age with how much information we have access to, there's only so much we can take on.
Yeah.
There's only so much we can feel empathy. We get bombarded by news of everything going on around the world, famine and war, diseases, murder. It piles on us, and in order to protect ourselves, we have to numb ourselves to some of it.
Yeah.
We cannot survive and take it all in and feel all of it all the time.
Absolutely. You're right.
But it's the advice I've seen is that you should try to find one thing that you can make an impact on.
Absolutely.
Focus
Yeah.
on that. It can be something local in your community or in your family. It could be something you can may somehow get involved with on the other side of the world or another country. But try to find just one thing that you know that you can make an impact on.
Yeah.
And whittle away on it.
Yeah.
That is how you make progress. That is how you take your empathy and produce something with it, rather than feeling bad and awful all the time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hunter. You are so right. When Jesus told this story, he did not live in the age of media and constant information. It was a little simpler when Jesus told the story. And so it can be overwhelming to see all the ills of the entire world coming at us, constant barrage of problems. But doing something about the person that is right in front of you, doing something about the people that you know, doing something that can make a difference in a single person's life, I think you're absolutely right.
I totally agree with that, and I have the problem of feeling so bad because I can only help a few. And a while back, I read something that really affected me, and it was about a grandmother, and she would take a globe, hold it in her lap in her rocker, and rock it back and forth. She was feeling for the whole world.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I ordered a squishy globe. It's bigger than a baseball, and when I go out on my porch in my rocker, I take that and wrap my arms around it, and I know God knows I'm trying to envelop everyone.
Yes, that's a great idea. Thank you for sharing that.
I think sometimes something has happened to us that really brings this to focus. Gil and I were going to pick up Dana in Winston-Salem, South Carolina. My sister lived in Knoxville, and we stopped and ate, and we got back on the interstate. And as soon as we did, our air conditioner froze up and burnt the belt off, and we were stuck out on an interstate. This man came by, pulled in behind us, and he says, "Is your car broke?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "I'll take you over to get you a rental car if you want one." I said, "Yes, I would." So he took us over to the airport. He got us a rental car. He says, it was a Cadillac. He says, "Do you want me to call the Cadillac dealer and tell him to come and pick it up for you?" I said, "If you would, it would be a big help." So that man, not knowing us from Adam, helped us, took us and got us a rental car. We were able to go on our way, and we come back the next week and picked up our car, and he took care of all that. All I had to do is call and tell him to fix the car.
Yeah.
And so somebody like that sometimes will make you want to try to help, but then, like he said, you see on the TV every time you try to help somebody, something happens. A policeman stops and tries to help somebody shoots him, something like that. So you really, things like that happen, but they very seldom want to show the good things that happen. They want to show the bad things.
Yeah. And Jesus told another parable about how dangerous it can be to stop and help somebody. That's the parable of the Good Samaritan. Jesus acknowledged that it can be risky, but he also said that we who follow him take the risk.
Bob, I was also thinking about how you spoke to those who will watch this broadcast later and their feelings of safety. And I think also we as a collective need to remember that because we feel safe, or or somebody we know feels safe doesn't necessarily mean another feels safe.
Yeah.
And that it's not an illegitimate fear. They know that, how do I want to put this? They're fearful for a good reason.
Yeah.
And to respect that is to allow them to remain in anonymity until, if they ever feel like they want to come.
If ever, yeah.
But, yeah, but I've been in other churches where the fear is undermined and it's named as if it's shallow and not really true. And we'll find some way to meet them where they are. We've got to respect people for the wounds that they have.
Yeah, yeah. And I hope that we can have communion with them at a deeper level. But if we can't, I'm welcome to take what we can get.
Exactly.
And so whatever you're willing to commit to us, know we're here for you. If staying in the shadows is all you can do, that's okay. We love you.
Our church also does a good job of this, not me myself, but others. Alan, for instance, in the soup kitchen, he feeds a lot of people and sends home a lot of meals, and we allow the Alcoholics Anonymous and all those groups to meet. And so our church does a lot of help to the society with, that people don't know about,
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I think we do a lot of our part of trying to help people.
We do. Absolutely true. Speaking of Alan, he saved me this week. I pulled up to the drive-through window and my car died and wouldn't stop. So I'm blocking up fortunately nobody pulled in behind me at the time, but I couldn't move my car. And so I had the car was full of groceries and my car is dead. And so I called Alan and he came and rescued me, took my groceries and me home, and showed that kindness that you were talking about earlier, Roy. It's so good to have people come help you when you need help, isn't it?
How hard is it to be kind and be humble at the same time?
Yeah.
And there was a story about the guy that he got a chance to walk with Jesus, and instead of interacting with Jesus, he was saying, "Hey, y'all see who I'm walking with?"
Right, yeah.
And it's like, nobody saw me do that good deed. Guess they weren't supposed to.
That's right, yeah. It's hard to be both, isn't it, sometimes? Yeah, our egos get in the
Bob,
way.
like you said, it's nice to have people you can count on like that.
Yeah.
But sometimes we have to get past ourselves to ask for the help.
That's true too. Yeah. Anyone else? Any other thoughts?
You need a lot of help.
We need a lot of help.
And have a lot of help.
I only heard about half of what you said, I think, Richard.
Get a lot of help. You're talking about we need to help others and we also need help ourselves.
Absolutely, yeah. Got to do both. Yeah. Thank you, Richard. Anyone else? Other thoughts? Other questions?
Richard has been a big helper to our church too, especially going back to Seven Hills when
Yes.
he was able to, and when he wasn't sick and things. He helped a lot. Richard done a lot for our church.
Yes, he
so
did.
he's been a big helper when he could.
Over the years, Richard's been a huge help to this church. Absolutely. Thank you.
And he was one of the reasons that I felt so comfortable at Journey was talking to Richard.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else that has something to say? Okay. If you are watching right now live on Facebook, I encourage you to use the link that is in the chat and switch over to Zoom. Those of you who may not have been watching this morning, we had a text go out just a few minutes ago with the Zoom and announcement about our family meeting. So we're going to do that in just a couple of seconds. If you would go ahead and join us by Zoom so that you can be a part of our family meeting. Caitlin, if you'll come call us to order, we will begin to have a conversation. I remind you again that we don't keep a membership roll. If you are present, whether you are present in person on site or you are present on Zoom, you are welcome and are part of this family.